Hi, it's Carissa McNaught from Needle and Anchor Supply Company, and I'm here today to show you how I turn my zippers 90 degrees for my zipper pouches. And I will actually give you one to show. So at the beginning, which is the top of the zipper, it will need to be turned 90 degrees so that it can go into the seam allowance. There are other ways to do this per other designers' directions, but this is how I do mine. So I have a couple different fabrics, and I have scrap zippers that I've cut off and I just throw in a bag. Sometimes I use them and sometimes I don't, but this works perfect for this demonstration today. So I have, these are number 3 zippers. They usually have, they don't have the pulls on them. They usually have a smaller pull. They're the ones that you can buy at Joann's. I don't usually use them, but except for in small pouches and stuff like that, like the Beachcomber coin purse. So they just, for handbags, they don't have as big of a pull. You can buy the bigger pulls, but normally when you buy them, they have this smaller pull. And unless you put something on it, it's really hard to grab. So I use them for the small things. But for bigger bags, I like to use handbag zippers, and they have a bigger pull. I don't have one to show right now, but I can show that in the future. Today we're just going to do the zipper tabs, and I'm going to show zipper tabs and how to turn my zippers. So first of all, we need to do the turning of the zipper, the 90 degree. And since these are 1 inch and this is 1 1/4 inches for number 5 zippers, I usually make my mark of where I'm going to turn it at 5/8, and then it's just the same. I can remember every time. So we're going to make a mark, and I'm going to do it 4 times so that everybody can see it a couple times. Okay, so I'm going to do it, like I said, at about 5/8 of an inch. You don't have to do this, but it gives you enough, like if you are limited with how long your zipper is, that's how much you will need for a 1 1/2 or 1 1/4 inch wide zipper is 5/8 to turn at 90 degrees. So that's why I go with the 5/8, because it's half the width of the zipper. So I'm going to mark all of these at 5/8, and because this one's dark, I have to use a different marker, my Choco liner. I love that. This one's pink, so I can kind of do whatever I want. I'm going to do this. Sorry, I have a little bit of the sniffles. I'm so sorry. Okay, so here's this. And one more. So, all right, these are all marked. Okay, so now that they're marked, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this apart. I'm going to open up the zipper a little bit. And remember, you're going to have a pull on it. These don't have a pull right now. I'm just demonstrating. Your pull would be going up this way to close. So this is the top of the zipper, and this would be the bottom of the zipper, and the zipper would be closed this way. So that's why I'm calling this the top. Okay, so what you're going to do is see the little line? What you're going to do is you're going to pinch it right there. And then you're going to take that pinch part and put it right underneath the teeth. Just like that. May seem a little awkward at first, but once you do it a couple times, it gets easier and easier. It's like putting pulls on if you buy a zipper by the yard. The first couple times is always really hard, but then after a couple times you get it down, you're like, oh, okay, I can do this. So try on some scrap zipper and just keep making marks and keep trying it. And then I just put a pin through it because we're gonna sew this. And actually that's not right on the line, so I'm gonna go and fix that so that that line's not showing, because let's say I was really using this, I would not want that line to show. So think of it like doing like corners on a bed, making the bed, you know, the 90 or the 45-degree corners and stuff like that. You're going to pinch it and you're going to just do it a certain way. And then that's what it's going to look like right there. And see, the line is right on that edge. And most of this will be sewn into the seam allowance anyway. But if you're worried about if it's going to show, use something like a Choco liner and it'll just wipe out. Or you can just make sure that that line is completely folded back. Okay, so on the other side, because I'm not left-handed, it feels a little awkward, but I'm going to still pinch it. So I'm going to pinch it on that line. And then I'm going to turn, and this is going to be hard so I don't poke myself. Here, let's try it this way. I wish I could do these videos live, but I still need more people to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So hopefully I can do these live in the future. It's really hard to do it on a camera and get everybody to see it. And I'm trying not to poke myself. Let me move this pen. Okay, so I'm putting that pen right there. And then I'm pinching this. And like I said, I'm not left-handed, so it's a little bit harder on this side. I'm going to pinch right there on that line. And then bring this to that. And since that line is showing, I want it just slightly under. There you go. And see? And then when I'm done, I'll just make sure that they're even on both sides. And if not, then I can adjust. So there's that. I'm going to do this a couple more times. So if I went out of focus a couple times, I'm so sorry. It's the first video that I'm doing on my YouTube. Okay, so I had to adjust this one a little bit. Maybe my line drawing was wrong or I pinched it in the wrong spot, but I just want to make sure that these are even on both sides. See, they're nice and pretty. They're even. And then what we'll do is I'll stitch right here on the sides just to make sure that that little fold, and on the back side it'll be basically like a mitered corner. It'll look like a 45. But this bend right here is 90 degrees. So that's why I say 90 degrees. So we're going to do a couple more. And then I'll show how I do my tabs also. Okay, so since this one has the Choco liner, some of it just came out. I'll just have to be a little more sensitive. But I'm just going to pinch this again. And bring that pinched line to just underneath the teeth. So that line will be parallel to the teeth that are folded now. Hopefully that makes sense. And I do this in my Posh pattern. I do this in my Beachcomber clutch pattern. I do this in anytime there is a zipper that needs to be folded that doesn't have a zipper end or a zipper tab. This will be done like this. And if you're left-handed or right-handed, maybe you should start with the the opposite side that's not your dominant hand. And then your dominant hand can be the second way to fold, and then that way it'll meet up each time. That's actually probably what I should do. So now we have 2 of these. I'm going to do the other 2 really quick. I'm folding these. So you just open up the zipper. And this one's a little frayed right here. If you want to prevent that, you can just take a lighter and just lightly melt those. That's what I usually do, but today I'm not going to because that is put away right now and I'm not going to run and go get it and make a lot of noise. So, see, I should have done it on the left side again. And then after we sew this, then I will trim it. And one more. I'm going to show it one more time. So I'm going to pinch, here, I'm going to take that down. I'm going to pinch this line and bring it right under the teeth. Like I said, there are other ways to do this. There are other, like, designers have, other designers have their techniques. This is just how I do mine. This one. And then, like I said, it doesn't take me this long. When I do these, it takes me maybe 10 seconds to do both sides. I'm so used to doing it. But that pinched line will be parallel to the zipper teeth. And then once we sew these right here on this edge, it's within the seam allowance and it won't even show and it'll look like it's just one piece. It'll look very nice and streamlined. And then if you're doing it for whatever pattern, mine or someone else's, then you would measure the zipper length from the top after it's folded to whatever the length is in that pattern. So I'm going to sew all these really quick. I usually use a tighter stitch, meaning like I use a 2.5 when I sew all my seams. So for a zipper, I usually use like a 2. It's just what I prefer. You can do whatever, but because it's such a small area, I want the stitches to be a little bit smaller so they don't pull out easily. So that's my thinking behind that. And then I just, sew it, and then I just backstitch back over my original stitches and then go back to where I was. That way it's, you know, there's no messy back stitches. I basically just went back over my stitches backwards. So, and then do the same thing on this side. And it's at the smallest, like the tiniest seam allowance I can do. Like not even an 1/8. It's like 1/16. It's just to make sure that those 2 pieces are together. And I'll show you really quick. And I'm going to take my pins out really quick. And I'll show you up close. See? And then trimming it. And if it had a zipper pull on it right now, it would be even prettier, but because when I would come up, bring up the zipper pull, it would tighten it all up, but I don't have a zipper pull on these. And when I trim, I only trim the excess that's coming out. I make sure not to trim on the actual zipper tape that is on the top side. Okay, so there's one. And I'm going to do the other ones really quick, and then I'm going to show how I do my zipper tabs. And just a heads up, I do my zipper tabs 1.5 by 1.5 every time. So if you think about 1.5 divided by 2 is 3/4, and then divide that by in half would be 3/8. So basically my zipper tabs usually end up 3/8 inch, you know, like across the zipper. That's how wide they are. But I do, when I use cork or vinyl, I do them slightly different. And I'm going to go over all of that in just a second too. Okay, so trim that one. And trim that. My trash can has run off. So there's 2. I don't think I need to do all 4 and sew them because I want to show, I mean, we know how to sew. It was more the turning that everybody needs to see. But here's the second one, sewn up. Looks like that on the back. Nice and pretty. Okay, so all that hard work, and I'm going to cut this off because I'm going to show how I do my zipper tabs. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. There's my trash can. I'm going to take these out. Okay, so I have different materials here for my tabs. Here's an interfaced quilting cotton. It has interfacing on the back, woven interfacing. This one is Essex linen. It gets a little bit thick sometimes, so I did not interface this one. Here's a vinyl. Pretty pliable, but it can be a little bit thick. And here's a piece of cork, which is about the same thickness. It's a little bit more beefy than the vinyl. But these 2 I will do slightly different. I'm going to show you how I do those. So for these, what I would do is you just make it flush with the end of the zipper. So there's the end of the zipper and there's the fabric. And you can pin it if you need to, clip it. I don't do any of that because it's just a small little zipper tab, and I just make sure once my needle is in it that I have it lined up. Okay, so what I do is I put it at 3/8. I'm going to be sewing it with 3/8 of an inch. And put my stitch length at the normal. And I kind of started into the zipper tape, so I'm going to back up a little bit and then go back over it. And I don't back stitch on that front side when I end it. Okay, so there's 3/8 of an inch. It's actually like, I think it's more like 5/16. Is that right? It's just shy of 3/8 on my sewing machine, but that's what I do. But you can do 3/8. It's just where my little thing is. So then you take it to the back, and you can make a line if you want, or you can just take this half and fold the tab in half, and then flip it over so that it's going to cover those stitches on the back. It doesn't really matter if it covers those stitches because nobody's going to see that. And then I would just sew that little sandwich together. So it's flipped over and it's 4 thick, like 4 layers thick on top of the zipper, or, you know, wrapped around the zipper. and then you top stitch. And I did not put a top stitch length, but you get the idea. So here is what it would look like. All right, so I'm gonna do another one, but I'm gonna show with the vinyl how I do that one. So you're gonna put it face down on top of the zipper, like the other one, flush with the end of the zipper. And this one I would do a slightly, just a slightly bigger seam allowance. You can do 3/8. That's what I'm actually doing on this one. A true 3/8, not my scant 3/8. Okay. Because this one is only going to be 3 layers of the vinyl. So I'm going to pull this one to the back. And then I'm going to just go like this. And I'll trim it off at the end. So I wrapped it around. I pulled on the stitches. And this is how I like to do mine so that there's no gappy. Like if you had a pull here, it won't go underneath that fabric. And that's why I always like to do this one stitch instead of just making a little sandwich and putting it on. There would be a gap where that zipper pull could go underneath, and I don't like that. So I do mine this way. I sew it here first so that it's a true stop. And then I flip it over, and then I flip here, and then I'm gonna just sew it top stitch right here, and then that excess I will trim off at the end right next to where my top stitches are. And remember, nobody's going to be looking inside of a pouch or something to see if there's a raw edge there on that vinyl. So I'm going to do my top stitch length, not like I didn't before. And I should probably be using a Teflon foot with this because it's a little bit grippy. And you could hear it kind of gripping. So I kind of had to manipulate it a little bit. So that's what it looks like before I trim it. Now I'm going to trim this. And I'm going to trim it very, like, almost in one sweep. That way I don't get, like, any jagged edges. Look, nice and pretty. And then I will trim right there. And trim right there. And that's what my zipper tab looks like. Nice and pretty. And it's not super bulky because I only did, it's going to be the two layers on the top and then the one layer on the back. So it's not super bulky, and it'll sew right into a seam, and it won't be any different than this fabric, which I will trim right here too. Nice and pretty. So those are the 2 different types of material. Same with these. I was just showing you this one. I would do the 4s where you just sew it at the 3/8, fold it over itself, and then it would be 4 layers thick on this too. So if you want, you could draw a line halfway through. That's what I say in my patterns. I don't do that anymore, but I mean, if it makes it easier until you get the process down that works, because then you know how to sew it. Okay, so I'm gonna show that really quick. So I did it halfway, and I'm gonna cut this down so it's flush. And I'll sew that really quick, and I'll show you how to do that. You might want to start that out even. Ugh, I don't like how that sounds. Okay, there we go. So this line is drawn at 3/4 of an inch, and half of that is 3/8. Okay, so okay. So when I flip this over, it should line up to about that line. See? And that would be 3/4. So then you fold this side to the 3/4 line, flip that onto the back. So see, it's so it's done like this, flip to the center, and then flipped over the back. Then you top stitch, and I need to lengthen my stitch length. And if you don't use the woven interfacing, I would recommend using some starch to heavily stabilize it, you know, like to get it nice and crisp and give it a little bit of body, so that it's not all floppy when you're sewing it on. Once it's sewn on, the 4 layers will create its own body, but you know, like when you're first sewing it on, it might seem a little wimpy, if that makes sense. And here's what it looks like sewn. And then I will trim it down. And I will do the cork one really quick too. So that's what it looks like. Nice and pretty. Cork, I would do the same way as the leather, or the vinyl. Sorry. I call it faux leather when it looks like leather. I know some people will say, oh, it's not faux. Well, if it looks like leather, to me, I call it faux leather. Okay, so again, 3/8 of an inch. You can do it a little bit bigger if you want, because you do have the 1.5 inches length. Or you can just trim it off, depending on how you want it. Okay, so then I'm going to flip this to the back, and there's going to be a little overhang, like from where you're going to top stitch, you see, right there. So I'm going to top stitch this, and it's going to be 3 inches thick. It's going to be 3 inches thick, and then I'll go in and trim off the excess, which is fine. Because you don't want it super bulky, especially if it's cork, or because it's gonna be harder for you to push that little corner out when you're making a pouch and stuff like that. So you're trying to reduce the bulk there while still having the tab. Okay. So when I trim these, I like to do it in one swift movement. That way it doesn't have like a jagged cut line. And there you go. Nice and pretty. Okay. And there's that. And there we go. So, I mean, if this was a real zipper, obviously I would have a pull here, but I was just showing. So there we go. I hope this was informational, and I hope this was helpful for anyone that had any problems. If you have any other questions, ask them in the comments below, and I will get back to you. Thank you. Bye.